A sophisticated threat actor has compromised the underlying architecture of global network infrastructure, triggering an immediate and coordinated emergency response. The Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance and CISA issued Emergency Directive 8603 to address threats targeting Cisco Catalyst SD-WANs. SD-WAN, or Software-Defined Wide Area Network, is a virtualized service that manages and connects enterprise networks across different geographical locations. This mobilization includes the UK's National Cybersecurity Centre and the US National Security Agency. Investigations by the Australian Cybersecurity Centre found this actor operating within critical networks since at least 2023. The Five Eyes are responding to a specific strategic threat. The attackers are moving past consumer data to target the management plane, allowing them to own the network infrastructure itself. Threat actor UAT-8616 utilizes a specific methodology that bypasses standard security checks. Administrators discovered that their SD-WAN controllers were running current, patched firmware, while simultaneously being compromised at the root level. This condition is the result of a version manipulation exploit chain. The actor forces the firmware to regress to a vulnerable state, executes a payload, and then immediately pushes the system back to the current version. This tactic chains a CVSS 10.0 authentication bypass with a deliberate firmware downgrade. CVSS stands for Common Vulnerability Scoring System, where a 10.0 score indicates a critical vulnerability that is easily exploitable over a network. This downgrade and restore methodology allows the actor to implant hooks that survive firmware updates, which prevents detection by perimeter alarms. To defend against UAT-8616, network engineers must deconstruct the mechanics of this exploit chain, beginning with the initial breach. The attack targets the SD-WAN controller and the SD-WAN manager, bypassing the data plane routing of the individual edge devices. This architecture relies on a strict logical separation between the data, control, and management planes. The management plane operates via the netconf protocol over TCP port 830, a protocol used to install, manipulate, and delete the configuration of network devices. Initial access is achieved through CVE 2026-2127, an improper authentication vulnerability. CVE stands for Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures. The attacker acts as a rogue peer, injecting crafted requests into the controller's peering authentication flow. This bypass grants the attacker a high-privileged account with the netadmin role. This privilege level allows the attacker to use netconf pathways to manipulate the routing logic of the entire network. However, the netadmin role is inherently limited. While it allows for invisible manipulation of the fabric, it does not provide the root-level access to the underlying operating system required for persistent control. While the actor controls network routing, they lack access to the underlying operating system. The zero-day exploit, a vulnerability unknown to the vendor, for which no patch exists, is insufficient for root escalation. UAT-8616 resolves this by using their netadmin privileges to actively downgrade the software on the Cisco Catalyst SD-WAN controller. The controller version regresses, moving from a secure state back to a legacy firmware version. This move reintroduces a legacy vulnerability that had been previously patched by Cisco. This subverts traditional security monitoring, which is designed to identify malware payloads rather than administrative version rollbacks. The attacker transforms a hardened system into a vulnerable one using internal administrative functions. In this downgraded state, the attacker exploits CVE 2022-2775, a legacy path traversal vulnerability. A path traversal flaw lets commands escape the authorized directory, accessing the operating system root. This elevates their privileges from netadmin to root. They establish persistence by injecting malicious root SSH keys into the authorized keys file, an encrypted command line protocol. The actor then purges the system's log directories to erase the record of the rogue peering event and the version downgrade. The final step involves restoring the system to the current, fully updated version. This leaves a system that passes every version check and vulnerability scan, while hiding a permanent, invisible root backdoor. A common misconception in network security is that applying a simple firmware patch for CVE 2026-2127 is sufficient to eliminate risk. This zero-day succeeded due to a fundamental architectural failure, a flat exposure where the VPN 512 management interface is directly accessible from the public internet. This provides the direct line of sight required for UAT-8616 to attempt the initial authentication bypass. While a patch stops this specific exploit, leaving the management interface exposed ensures the infrastructure remains vulnerable to the next undiscovered zero-day. Defense requires acknowledging that software will always contain flaws. Security must be enforced by an architecture that physically restricts access to the management plane. CISA Emergency Directive 8603 and the Cisco Hardening Guide define specific architectural mandates for these environments. Rule 1 requires the complete isolation of the management plane. The management interface must be severed from the public internet and moved into an isolated out-of-band internal VLAN. A VLAN, or Virtual Local Area Network, is a logical subnetwork that isolates traffic from the rest of the physical network. Rule 2 establishes strict perimeter controls. A hardened jump host is introduced, routing all SSH and HTTPS traffic through a single choke point. Mandatory multi-factor authentication must terminate at this jump host before reaching the controller. Rule 3 enforces least privilege access internally to protect the protocols. Granular firewall rules must strictly limit netconf traffic, allowing it only between the specific IP addresses of the SD-WAN manager and the controllers. When using software-defined infrastructure, the management plane is the primary strategic target. Defending it requires rigorous, out-of-band architectural isolation.